Tetsu Shiohara was a lonely 47-year-old Japanese man who livestreamed his regular hikes and insights from his life on the internet. On October 28, 2019, he decided to climb the world-famous Mount Fuji in Japan and streamed this event live on the internet. However, although Mount Fuji is generally considered a beginner-friendly mountain to climb, Tetsu decided to climb the mountain outside of the official season, when the mountain is considered very dangerous due to snow and high winds. What's more, Tetsu decided to hike without proper equipment, climbing the mountain in street shoes and without ice picks, among other things. This went well for the most part, as we can see him hiking near the summit and already above the clouds. Shortly after, he jokingly talks about how dangerous it is and hikes past the safety fences. The following happens.
ここも危ないね。ちょっとね、斜面、滑る。
And as abruptly as he slips and falls down the mountain, as abruptly the recording ends. In the recording, we can only see how inevitably and without support he falls down the mountain. But what if I told you that Tetsu's entire action was possibly intended exactly that way? You see, Tetsu had stage 4 cancer with a 7% chance of survival. He had no friends, no job, and no real qualifications in his life. And when you're approaching 50 and don't have any of these things, it's questionable how your mental health is doing at that point. And although his parents supported him financially and he even studied in the US, after many attempts he was unable to complete his studies successfully, which is why he returned to Japan. Eventually, he discovered hiking and mountaineering. In fact, just 5 days earlier, he had livestreamed his hospital visit, where a viewer commented that they would like to watch Tetsu climb Mount Fuji. So, assuming that his viewers were like friends to him, he probably didn't want to disappoint them and wanted to make them happy with his action. That's another thing. At the time of his death, he was not inexperienced or a novice. Tetsu should have known exactly what equipment he needed for such a climb. Yet he did not have an ice pick with him, which might have saved his life if he had slipped. Instead, he decided against it and actively challenged his luck. He also often talked about how life-threatening this climb could be, so the thought of death was always on his mind. And maybe that was the energy that sealed his fate from the start. Dude went up a mountain instead of waiting for cancer to take him out. Given the choice, I'd probably choose the mountain too. On April 28, 2000, 22-year-old Russian diving instructor Yuri Lipski wanted to break his diving record in a blue hole near Dahab in Egypt in the Red Sea. For those who don't know, the blue hole in the Red Sea is a very popular spot for divers. At the same time, it is not suitable for beginners and requires advanced diving equipment and skills. It is notorious for having claimed the lives of several people. Although the entire recording is only 7 minutes long, we can already tell that something is terribly wrong just 1 minute after Yuri dives down. You can hear Yuri making sounds of distress as if he's unable to breathe properly. And unfortunately, it doesn't get any better from there. Instead of swimming to the surface, we see Yuri sinking further and further to the bottom, and the image becoming darker and darker. I will explain why he did not swim to the surface in more detail in a moment. Meanwhile, Yuri's suffering becomes more and more intense with every passing second. Until in the last minute, we can see Yuri getting closer and closer to the bottom, and the camera finally stops recording any movement. But how exactly did this situation come about? To understand this more clearly, I need to go back a little further. Before Yuri even went diving on April 28th, his diving instructor colleague Tarek Omar advised him not to go. In addition, Yuri was unfortunately not well enough trained for this kind of depth and only had one gas tank with oxygen, which was not designed for great depths anyway. The most crucial point, however, is that Yuri descended far too uncontrollably and very quickly suffered nitrogen narcosis. Nitrogen narcosis is an intoxicating state that causes severe cognitive impairment and can trigger panic, poor judgment, and even hallucinations in those affected. As a general rule, nitrogen narcosis can occur at depths of 30 meters or roughly 100 feet. Yuri, however, dived to a depth of 150 meters or 380 feet, which presumably greatly increased the severity of the nitrogen narcosis. In the recordings, you can hear Yuri trying in vain to fill his buoyancy compensator, which would have made it easier for him to surface. But for some reason, this did not work, and due to nitrogen narcosis, Yuri must have been so disoriented that he continued to descend. Tarek Omar, Yuri's fellow diving instructor, was ultimately the person who recovered him from the water at his mother's request and later found the recordings. Gabby Petito was a 22-year-old American woman who was pursuing her dream of traveling and, in July 2021, traveled across America in a camper van with her fiancé Brian Laundrie. In the same year, Gabby began posting regular content about her travels on Instagram and YouTube, quickly gaining a small audience. With a 3-part Netflix documentary, the Gabby Petito case is a very intense, informative, and generally extensive case that I simply cannot explain and describe in detail in this video. If you would like me to make a separate video about the case, please let me know in the comments. What is relevant for you to know is that the relationship between Gabby and her fiancé Brian was not a particularly healthy one. A key event in their case was a viral police bodycam video with over 16 million views, showing an emotionally distraught Gabby and a rather calm Brian. Essentially, the two had a public argument that led to physical altercations between both parties. Eyewitnesses saw this, which is why the police were called in the first place. And although the video is over an hour long, it ended with neither of them taking legal action and the police suggesting that they live and sleep apart for a few days. However, this did not last long, so they soon traveled together again. That was on August 12th. On August 19th, Gabby uploaded her first and last YouTube video, which shows a supposedly positive time with Brian in nature and in their van life. But this is where things get strange, because Brian flew home alone on August 17th to pick up some things that were important for the long road trip. On August 23rd, he met up with Gabby again to continue the trip, and on August 25th, Gabby spoke to her mother on the phone for the last time. On the same day, she also posted her last pictures on Instagram. At 2 p.m. on August 27th, a CCTV camera recorded Gabby alive for the last time. She was seen there with Brian. After that, there was no further sign of life from Gabby. Later on August 27th, the dashcam recording from the van life YouTubers, Being Bethune, captured a white van near a campground in Spread Creek, Wyoming, which was still there later that evening. On August 27th and 30th, there were strange text messages from Gabby to her mother which concerned her and which she believed were not from Gabby. On September 11th, Gabby's mother reported him missing, and Brian, who had returned home alone to his parents on September 1st, was also reported missing on September 17th. Gabby Petito's remains were finally found near a campsite in Spread Creek, Wyoming on September 19th. She suffered blunt force injuries to the head and neck with manual strangulation several weeks before her body was found. It is believed that she died on the night of August 27-28. This was the same day she was last seen alive and her van was last seen in the same area. Human remains, along with personal belongings belonging to her fiancé Brian Laundrie, were found on October 20th. He died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. In his diary, he admitted that he had killed Gabby and that he had written fake text messages to certain people. One detail of the case that I find truly shocking is the following. If Gabby or Brian had given the police the impression of domestic violence rather than a mental breakdown on August 12th, then according to the law, there should have been an arrest. And if there had been an arrest, then Gabby might still be alive today. Jacob, better known as Whirlpool Hitman, was a young man who had a great fascination with the sea. At a time when YouTube was just beginning to become as big as we know it today, Jacob was already uploading a lot of videos about whirlpools, which also received a lot of attention. On May 28, 2013, Jacob decided, as he often did, to visit another whirlpool and swim in it. Together with his friend, who filmed him from the outside, he had what he thought was a fun time swimming in and around the whirlpool. For fun, he put on an exaggerated horse mask to collect extra funny clips for YouTube. But if he had known what would happen just a few minutes later, he would probably have acted very differently.
Yeah, one last bit underwater footage on the day.
We only see Jacob diving into the water toward the whirlpool, and moments later the video cuts to another moment where the camera is filming the water's surface moving calmly back and forth, carried only by the water. Then Jacob's friend, who was allowed to edit the video footage, adds a few final words to Jacob and the situation. The saddest thing about the situation is that Jacob himself only wanted to film one last short clip and then gets ready to go home with his friend. No one could have imagined that this would be his very last effort and that a whirlpool would be the last thing he would see before his death. A few minutes earlier, they were talking and Jacob's friend even said that they had already filmed enough material. Although they themselves thought that the whirlpool seemed particularly strong that day, and Jacob even felt a little afraid at first, that didn't stop him. And with that, his greatest fascination became, at the same time, the cause of his death.
That's pretty scary.
Yeah, it's a very powerful one tonight, isn't it?
Yeah, earlier on it was scary. It's really scary.
It still is. It's
fine now because it's so deep you can kind of control it. When I first got in I was a bit scared to be honest.
Yeah.
But it's safe as now, like it's good.
Tony regularly uploads videos of his personal adventures. As the name suggests, he enjoyed riding off-road mountain bike trails in forests or on special tracks and recorded this with a body cam or helmet camera. But while most days ended well, August 18th, 2021 would reveal a completely different side. Together with his friends Matt and Jake, they set out that day to ride at Whistler Bike Park, which has many smaller and larger jumps. And just a few minutes into their ride, after they had already completed a few jumps, the following happened. A few seconds after Tony's fall, his friends Matt and Jake came right over to check on him. Since the camera flew away on impact, we can only hear the conversations.
You okay, man? Here, let's roll you over. Oh shit, Tony. Come on, let's roll you over. This way. Holy fuck. Okay, I'm gonna call patrol. Open your mouth. Oh, you fucked your teeth. You lost a tooth.
Fortunately, Tony survived the fall. However, he has been paraplegic since that day and was able to document the last moments of his greatest hobby. He wrote in the video description, I was immediately airlifted to VGH and underwent emergency surgery on my badly fractured spine. I broke my neck at C2, my back at T4, rendering me a paraplegic for the rest of my life. I also broke all my ribs, scapula and sternum from the GoPro mount. I have no regrets. I was having an awesome run right up to the crash and I would do it all over again. Special thanks to my friends Jake Dennison and Matt Bush for calling Whistler Bike Patrol swiftly and saving my life that day. I love you boys. I hope to get on a bowhead reach one day and ride some park with the boys again. I think this shows us how quickly life can change in a matter of seconds. Despite his paraplegia, Tony continues to enrich his life with many adventures and refuses to let the accident get him down.